tomorrow is the last episode of Hexatombe, which means I have one day to try and turn all of these notes here into a cohesive theory/story about what I think has been going on in this marvelously confusing season. And definitely I'm missing some puzzle pieces, both within Hexatombe, but also within the universe of Ordem. So, big flash spoiler alert, spoiler thing. Please, for the love of everything you find holy, do not put any spoilers for O Segredo na Ilha or Sinais do Outro Lado in the comments of this video, because I have not seen them. And I know as soon as I bring up O Sino or Tenebris, people are gonna be like, oh, but in OSNI or SDOL. And I'm like, no. Por favor, eu não vi ainda. No spoilers, okay? Thank you. So basically what this video is I'm gonna try and talk through some theories I've had previously that I think still hold, gonna adapt them a little to what we know now, as well as give some potential solutions to the questions I still have and don't feel like I can make a full, like, this is what I'm betting on is gonna happen type of theory. Everything in here is, of course, theories, and I am not full of myself enough to believe that everything in here is going to be right, but I'm hoping that I might have brushed up against some truths along the way. And the first truth that I am fairly certain I and Izzy, who's been rewatching this with me, has brushed up against is from the very first episode. It is the theory of the voice, what we called at the time meta voice, or Entidade, o Selbit Entidade. I believe that the voice that we're hearing, the little extra narration bits, the odd narrations, the thing trying to influence the decisions, the intentions of the characters, and also the players, partially, in episode 8 and 9, is the Entity of Intenções, Entidade de Intenção. I think this voice has been speaking to the characters through Selbit's narrations the entire time. Because, as we noted down, narrative bits that feel like a meta voice, all of these, Selbit did a slightly more intense narration.
Você merece essa grandeza.
Does his voice slightly change?
Wait, what?
Because I was thinking that with both like the 17 seconds and the he looked somewhere that and found what he deserved or something. There was a lot like more emotion pushed into that.
Yeah, he sounds more serious and more angry.
Yeah, and this time it happened so fast that I'm like, is that a like purposely differentiation in the narration? Again, just one of those like thoughts that like it's either like the intuitive feelings, or are we playing with like a meta narrative of like Selbit is both the GM but then also some kind of thing influencing what they're hearing?
Maybe?
So like saying like
thing.
You deserve this greatness, like planting that thought.
Everything here sounds like somebody's behind it.
Yeah.
To me.
And we had that thing in the beginning of like them hearing a voice saying, do not touch.
Don't open it.
Oh yeah, don't open it. That's what it was. Não abre.
Você se reconhece. Você é o homem dessa foto. Só que ele tá um pouco mais novo. A foto dá a entender que você é o delegado de Inquisidor do Vale há pelo menos uns 10 anos. Foi a sua ascensão.
Holy shit.
Yes, holy shit.
Holy fuck. Okay.
No teste de
No. Go back.
It was
go back,
his
go back, go back.
rise. That was so clear.
That was
Oh
so
my
clear.
god. It feels like a possession. Holy shit. Which is almost telling the characters how they are supposed to be feeling about the little bit of like memory flashbacks they're getting. It's not the memory flashback. It's this is how you felt about this moment. These are your feelings. These are potentially your intentions about said moment coming from the outside, not from the characters themselves. It's the voice. It's the entity that has been influencing this story and these characters all along. Which leads us to theory part number 2. I don't know why I did this. It's because I gave it a title without having thought about it. Theory part number 2, which is the masks are connected to the Entity of Intenção, which is connected to Tenebris. And that is the reason why this entity has been able to influence the characters all along, because we have a body that is linked, potentially marked, but you know, that word holds a lot of connotations in Ordem, so let's just use linked until further confirmations have been made, to Intenção, and as a mind, soul person that has been marked by a marca, was a marcado. The reason why I feel confident in saying that these masks are more than just cursed objects is because of this right here, the red scribbles, as well as the word intenção. Intenção is a word that started appearing in Natal Macabro. When the characters in Natal Macabro picked up things that belonged to the killers, we were told that it felt like there were intentions in them that was trying to take over them. When Jurel put on the mask of Caçador docente, o Caçador, he slowly lost who he was and got completely taken over by this like entity or figure or thing that was inside the mask until he was o Caçador. Now, the scribbles. Throughout this season, the red scribbles have been a visual representation of the vibrations or the powers of the bell, which Selbit told us the first time the bell rang, because the sacrifice had been made, that they saw these scribbles happening out. Obviously, when Cristino touches the bell, his pupils become scribbled over and they feel like these scribbles crawling up them. Basically, red scribbles equals bell, which equals the element of intenção. And when we first got introduced to them having to pick a character, we saw here their killer versions, their mask versions in red scribbles. In the intro, we see them again flashing in red scribbles. When they put on the mask for the first time, red scribbles outline them. Here we go, as another one. Look at that, red scribbles. So I think this influence has been there all along, and the intentions, the intenções that are inside the masks are linked to these powers that they get later, but also intentions, personalities that get put onto the person using it. Now, we've seen what happens when somebody puts on a killer mask, both in the Macabro and when all of our characters have done it in Hexatombe. And we've seen that these poder de intenção are fully visually and name-wise linked to the killers, not the agents, which, considering the fact that each of them chose the name of their agent, would lead you to think that if everybody had like an inherent intenção within them that got connected to O Lado and got made paranormal that way, these would be showing the intenções of the agents, the characters, the final version of themselves that they chose, but they didn't. They show the killers. Also, very interestingly, in Novo Caminho from Labirinto or Hemi, it speaks of how he can take the intention from someone else, and it's written Intenção, Intenção in all caps, and it's only one. Usually, if you think about intentions change based on each situation you're in. It depends on like what you're intending to do. So this version, this paranormal version of intentions, is something more distinct and more defined than that. And it's a singular thing, which doesn't really fit in my mind with a complex characters. But as Selbit said, when they touched the bell, they were now filled for the first time with the intenções de outro lado. And I think that's what these are. They're predetermined intenções that belong to the element of intenção, which are linked to the language that is found in the bunker here, which explains how O Corvo and Pomba was able to analyze and basically translate the estigmas e intenções. These estigmas and this symbol doesn't change year from year, because we've seen from a previous version in Natal Macabro with Alice Lucina's grave that it's the same carvings that was on there, which means, again, these are predetermined things, not things that come from the characters that are inside Hexatombe, but something that comes from Hexatombe or the element of Intenção, and then links to or gets put onto the characters, the people that joined the game. And I think the masks function the same way. I also think that the Couraça's armor, which we were also told had like a mind or will, which feels a lot like intentions, of its own, is another cursed entity object of intenção. Finally, we have Siculera. I must have a better picture of... sure. Oh, sorry, down here. But we've seen how their masks, again, completely changes their personalities. Now, based on this, I'm going on a little leap and saying that each team had some kind of intention-based object that they were linked to. For Os Pájaros, I'm gonna assume it's the feathers that they were all having. For Transtornados, I think it was the gold chains that they all seemed to be having as well. I'm a little unsure of what I would say it is for Os Vampiros. Not gonna lie. Except for the fact that they seem to just be a full... like, their body seems to be a cursed object, you know? Like, they've tried to link themselves to something so badly. Obviously, it's Sengi, but I wonder if that, like, counts for them, and through that have also made connections with Intençãoes. So I can't, you know, but this is as... oh my god, intense house? Is that what it's translating it to? That's really funny. I'm trying to pronounce the paranormal words in Portuguese. Am I doing it right? Hold on.
Intenções.
Intenções.
Intenção.
Intenção. Intenções. I think that was kind of maybe theory part 3 or something, that every single team has been linked to the element of intenção through some kind of like cursed object with intentions that are trying to like take over what they want sometimes. Which I wonder is what is actually defining whether or not they can go to Hexatombe. Because I don't think our agents, Lena, Hemi, Jasper, Maria, Tuco, have paranormal intenções. Now, I did say that I think Tenebris, through Intenção, has been messing and influencing stuff from the beginning. So besides the voice, I think that this whole area that we see, the red fluxo, is also linked to Intenção. And, oh, what do we see here? Red scribbles on O Lado. A monster, a creature, a criatura that has been haunting me since day one. Because I still disagree that the way this narration was described, the words that were chosen, I don't think they fit this thing that Agatha put forward of it being their real bodies turning into a monster for a little bit and then it's going to turn back to their real bodies. It doesn't make sense to me. And I might just have to accept that I just disagree with the word choices. That is okay. You know, I am not the sole decider of what is correct and what is wrong when it comes to describing monsters in Ordem. That is okay. I will accept it. But as long as there is still room for doubt because the season isn't over, I will continue to doubt, as is my right as a theorist. So, because we see these scribbles of intenção, which link to the bell, link to the element, presumably linked to Tenebris, I think that Tenebris / the element of Intenção meddled with this ritual from the very beginning, meddled with what happened in O Fluxo, and that's why it's not working the way Agatha thinks it does. It seems like, and this little add-on, I believe was something Izzy said to me, or it could have been Gianna. Shit, I really want to try and credit the people who've helped with theories when I can. I think it's one of those two. It seems like their memories, instead of being blocked by this little ritual and coming back a couple of hours later, as Agatha said, it is being blocked by the mask, by Intenção itself. Because they get him all back when they enter the bell. They get him back as they spend more time in the Hexatombe area, which is like full of Intenção, paranormal interference everywhere. Influence, that's the word, influence everywhere. Now, I know that there's this whole desejo diabólico obedecer a ele, which makes it seem like the voice might be O Diabo. I just don't think it fits. I've heard Selbit speak as O Diabo, and it doesn't feel very right to change the way that voice is just to like avoid people guessing things. Like that doesn't feel like in the spirit of Ordem. Also, the fact that all of them hears it at different points, even before they reach the bell, feels weird for O Diabo. And finally, like I said, these, for everyone else, are linked to their masks or their killer versions. Well, Annie's version of that is the Sengi armor, something that is heavily linked to something diabolical. Now, I am wondering if there is like a special thing for all the sacrifices, because another theory I had early on, which I believe was in, I don't have the thumbnail for that. It is in the, wait, hold on. Because it's not a great thumbnail, I'm gonna be honest. In this, I was trying to think of what, the kids of O Diabo, what is Annie's role in Hexatombe? I was wondering if part of being a sacrifice was that you had to have been a receptacle for O Diabo, which turned out to be correct. And then I took it one step further, that if it meant that you had to be o filho, a kid of O Diabo as well, which I can't say whether that is correct or not so far. We have Damir and Inhi / Juan, who definitely fits that role, and we don't really know much about the parentage of the others, so I can't confirm or deny it. But since we know that Intenção seems to be like a mix of Sengi and Conhecimento, which then turns into a third thing, and it seems like through Seraphim Vermelho, with the horns and the fact that we saw O Diabo slash Lucio and he Juan be the one to mark Damir with the stigma. That O Diabo is definitely involved somehow in all this. So, could it be? And I am less certain about, like, this is a newer thing. This falls into the meh, whereas some of the other stuff I feel more certain about. But of course, none of this is certain. Could it be that the players of Hexatombe, the people who, like, the teams, the groups, are all linked through cursed objects to Intenção, and the sacrifices are all linked to O Diabo, or to Sengi through O Diabo, and that's how they get chosen to be in Hexatombe. So I previously made a theory called Origin of Hexatombe, saying that the events of Seraphim Vermelho and of the Tenebris door, through legends and retellings, became Hexatombe. And I still think there's something about that. But this guy, Seraphim Vermelho, confuses me. In the bell room, we see murals. We see statues of the figure that we have come to know as Seraphim Vermelho, but none of them have horns, which is a very distinct feature of O Diabo, which also appears on some of the depictions that we see in the area, in the town, but not all of them. And the ones that have them seem to be a little hidden. This all here is ancient, like real old. Which, you know, it's not always the easiest to kind of figure out what that means in the mind of Selbit, but at least from pre-colonial times, probably older. Whereas the Seraphim Vermelho that we've seen mentioned in this area is presumably from 1966. Now, in the, I don't remember the name, campaign that Seraphim Vermelho was mentioned the first time, which all feels a little bit like a precursor to Hexatombe, with 7 bodies needing to be sacrificed and all that kind of stuff. We are told that he existed in the 700, I think, 700. Let me fact check that. 7th century, in the 7th century. So the idea of Seraphim Vermelho is definitely older. And I feel like it leaves us with 2 options. And I'm not entirely sure which one is the more plausible. So I will give you both. And you can, you know, leave your thoughts in the comments and let me know if you like either of these options or if you have your own. Remember, no spoilers from OSNI or SDOL. Please, por favor. I have not seen it. Option number 1. These people that we see here are original cultists of Tenebris / the Bell. And each of them has a link to each of the elements that we know of. The old elements, you know, sangue, conhecimento, morte, energia, medo. 5. Wow. 5 people. And that Seraphim Vermelho was the sangue representation in this cult. And that's why we see them all wearing the same thing. And the statue that we go up to, no horns, potentially, because, you know, O Diabo receptacle, horns, not there always. They come and they go, depending on if O Diabo needs your body right now. Close has the Tenebris symbol on it. So it could also be that one of them is a representative of Tenebris, whatever the fuck that is. I think it's a metal thing, probably. In my mind, this little Tenebris symbol was originally, wow, o outro lado, realidade, Tenebris, membrana, separating all of them, but also being the path through between each of them, like a labyrinth, difficult to navigate. But now I'm also thinking, if it's one element, 2 element, become new element, through the powers of Tenebris. Who knows? Could be both, could be neither, but I think both of those visual representations would fit pretty well with this. The other option for Seraphim Vermelho is that the Seraphim Vermelho we know from 1966 was actually a Singi occultist who knew about this area's relation to Tenebris and the Bell in Intenção, and was attempting to help O Diabo get in contact with this and with Tenebris, and therefore took on, you know, the mantra of somebody who had been part of this Bell cult, wearing the clothes of them, but occasionally revealing the horns because he was actually a receptacle for O Diabo. Now, what would O Diabo potentially want with all of this? Because no matter what the deal with Seraphim Vermelho is, why is O Diabo involved with this at all? Was he always involved in it? I'm not sure he was. I could see this having been a pure Intenção game of pitting different intentions against each other and enjoying seeing the resolutions it created. But because of the promise of what is at the end, it gained the intention of not just people, but also elements. Which leads us to theory section 5, I think that's what we're gonna call it. Theory section 5. The whole thing about this season is recomeço, a new beginning, novo começo. And I think the whole idea of like you getting wishes at the end is a little bit bogus. I think it's misunderstood through the documents. And I think the final sacrifice might not be an actual sacrifice. Now, this was first brought to my attention by Spectrum, I believe. In these rules, it says here, deve morrer sacrifício por noite, como a sexta noite sendo banhada pela lua de sangue. Apenas 6 podem realizar o sacrifício final. Now, only 6 can realize the final sacrifice. That doesn't sound like it's a 5+1 situation. You know? 5 people making a sacrifice. It feels like it's 6 people making a sacrifice. But if a sacrifice is a person, then surely one of those 6 people would be the sacrifice and therefore not making it, as in like fulfilling it or like doing it, stabby. So, because it's all about new beginnings, choosing who you're gonna be, leaving other parts of you behind, I think the final sacrifice will be you choosing between returning to Realidade without your new beginning, going back to the way things are without a new path, sacrificing, going forward in your story, in your destiny, or going to Tenebris, a completely different place, the impossible city. Please don't do spoilers from OSNI and SDOL, please. For the love of everything, please don't. And starting a new beginning, a new life, a new path there as part of Tenebris. But that means sacrificing your past, sacrificing your part in Realidade and leaving behind everyone and everything that you knew. So what does that mean for O Diabo? Well, we know from Calamidade, from the great paranormal debate club, where Anfitrião and O Diabo were buddy and trying to convince the team from Ouro Realitas that they needed to help them remove conhecimento so that they could not have control over the change of reality, correntes de realidade. Because they were tired of conhecimento having the control of them. How do you transfer the control from the one element to another when it comes to the change of reality? Well, Calamidade has that answer as well, and it is through Tenebris. That's all we know. So, it makes sense to me that O Diabo puts sacrifices that are receptacle of his, potentially his children, in each of the teams, hedging his bets that somehow this Hexatombe is gonna survive. It's gonna happen so that on the final day, he can take control of their bodies. As he said to Juan, you're not going to be alone for much longer because I'm going to join you. They didn't say the second part, but that's what I think he was implying. And now I've just contradicted myself by saying that like O Diabo was saying that, and I'm saying it was the Entidade de Intenção. I do think there could be some leeway that if the entity is speaking from the thing that's linked inside them with the other characters, the agents living in the bodies of the killers, it would be Intenção. But because this theory line of pathway is built on the thought that the sacrifices are linked to this through O Diabo, instead of it being element of, or the entity of Intenção speaking based on Intenções, it would be entity of Intenção speaking based on O Diabo. So that when they succeed and gain the opportunity to go to Tenebris, he gets to go and gets to try and do the thing of changing the control of the chains of reality to someone who's not conocimiento, most likely Singi, let's be real. And this little part of the theory pathway that we're on, because I like the idea of theories being little pathways, and sometimes they diverge and they intersect with other pathways you made, and that's basically what I'm trying to do right now. I have all these little theory pathways I've made throughout the season, and now I'm trying to make them all meet in one final road, basically. And what else is missing on that road? I'll tell you what's missing on that road. Part 6, Giovanni. The fuck is this guy up to? Well, once again, I'm gonna stick to my guts, my gut feeling that this guy somehow is linked to Kian. Because it just looks so much like this, you know? We know that there's already been some kind of communication between Scriptas and Giovanni in Iniciação. So I think the link is here, and I think it has to do something with Kian's pact. I cannot necessarily get you closer than that, except Kian wants access to Tenebris. O Diabo wants access to Tenebris. Kian is currently caught up here. This guy is not, acting on behalf of Kian to help O Diabo make sure that Hexatombe, this Hexatombe, is successful, so the pathways to Tenebris through the membrana, perhaps, labyrinto, are opened, and that both him, a representative on behalf of Kian, and a sacrifice, a representative / receptacle on behalf of Diabo / probably gonna get possessed by O Diabo again, are able to make it to Tenebris. Now, why are Tenebris interested in this one succeeding? Because I think they are. Because like I said, I think they've been influencing the killers from the very beginning. Now, it could just be for funsies. It could just be Intenção being like, oh, wow, there's a team here that I already have influence over. Wouldn't it be fun to just kind of mess with them a little bit more? You know, it seems like a lot of what Lado does in Realidade is simply because of fun and boredom, you know? It could also be the fact that Labirinto has some kind of link to Tenebris. Whether he was somebody obsessed with studying it and getting there, or somebody who has been there and was obsessed with coming back. He is the one who collected the killers, brought them together into one group, which presumably, or at least assumptionably, my assumption is that he is the one who gave them the masks laced with Intenção. He is the one who hid away his knowledge in his own labyrinth in his mind, in case somebody else was gonna mess with it. Maybe he knew. Maybe he knew the Order was snooping around and wanted to get in on this, so he prepared. And those actions have led Tenebris / Intenção to have a little back doorway into the ritual that was happening. And I think the reason why they could potentially want to influence this year's Hexatombe and make sure that survivors happen, that winners happen, is also because of Kian. Because he's gearing up for Calamidade. And if he wins in Calamidade, if he wins the fight that he's begun, it's gonna be bye-bye o outro lado. And in my opinion, bye-bye realidade. Therefore, bye-bye fun. No more weird, horrible battle royales running simulations on what happens when you pit intentions against each other over and over through different bodies. No more. We don't want that. Well, Tenebris doesn't want that. So, they need a stake in the war that's coming. And this is how they're gonna do it. At least that is the best answer I've been able to find in my mind onto what this whole Hexatombe is even about. And that's what all of these things are. They are my best guesses. Some I feel better about, some I feel more uncertain about, as to the multitude of questions about what Hexatombe is. And I think that's pretty much covered the biggest of my questions. I'm just gonna throw in one last thing. I think Pomba is gonna lead us to trouble. I think his cowardice will be the reason someone dies or gets hurt badly. I think it's either gonna be a conscious or subconscious betrayal, because it's in his mind it's better to be a coward than be dead. There you have it. That is my final attempt at putting together the story of Hexatombe before we get the final episode tomorrow. If you watched all the way through, thank you so much. If you've been following me along on this crazy Hexatombe journey and watching some of my other theories and some of my streams, thank you very, very much. I'll talk more about it after everything's over, but this has been a crazy cool way to experience my first proper season of Ordem Live. And I'm very happy that I have been embraced as a gringo making my little theories instead of just pushed aside. Thank you for everybody who's welcomed me once again in the community. And let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think I've brushed up against any truths in these theories? What do you think is gonna happen? And once again, please do not include any OSNI or SDOL spoilers. No spoilers from O Segredo na Ilha or Sinais do Outro Lado. If you have to put them so far down, do little dots and spaces so it gets pushed down and hidden under the read more section, please. And then let me know there's a spoiler, because I can't scroll the comment section and reply to other people without seeing the spoilers. Please. I will be watching both of those on stream, as I usually do, once Hexatombe is over. And I'll be able to fully theorize once we get the Calamidade 2. But right now, I'm still missing those two. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how all this ends. I'm really scared Selbit is just gonna completely rip my heart out. We'll see. Ciao.